Throughout the entire prequel trilogy, we are continually being told that Anakin Skywalker is the Chosen One, prophesied to bring balance between the light side and the dark side. And he kind of did. Well, sort of. While it wasn't really gone into in the movies, Sith Lords worked on a principle known as the Rule of Two, one master and one student, who would eventually overthrow their master and then take a student of their own. Rinse and repeat. When Anakin all but wiped out the Jedi forces, he essentially left two Jedi, Obi-Wan and Yoda. This way, the Force was balanced. You would think that this was the end, but balance is a fleeting, shifting thing that can only exist when there is a push and pull between good and evil. With the passing of Obi-Wan and Yoda, they left one Jedi in their wake. Luke was not the perfect hero that so many believed him to be, however. He was human, and when you build someone up on a pedestal, they're only going to have a much further distance to fall. Luke was never perfect. He, like everyone else who harnessed the Force, felt its call to the dark side. Even in his final battle against Anakin, he felt that call. A simple sweep of his blade, and he could kill Vader, but simultaneously lose his soul to the dark side. Some might call this mercy, but it was also an act of fear. Mercy would imply that he had nothing to fear in killing Vader, but he was afraid of the power that he would gain as a result. He feared the dark side and the power that could so easily corrupt. Now, this isn't to say that the Force itself was bad any more than saying money is bad. It can be useful, and it can do a lot of good, but the desire for this thing and the abilities that you gain when you have it at your disposal can be very bad. This moment, however, came to define Luke. People saw him as a hero, rightfully so in some ways, but the act of raising someone up as a hero is dangerous. Just because they acted heroically one moment does not mean they are free from ever doing wrong. This was something that Luke feared. He feared the Force and the utter power that came from it. He saw how easily it could grab hold of someone and drag them away, and he feared this happening over and over again. This fear came to fruition when he attempted to start his own Jedi temple, likely because others were pushing him to it. He didn't have much, just the ancient text, but he had pure intentions and hoped to raise these students to only use the Force for good. However, even with pure intent and ambition, the simple fact of having good Force users opened the doors to bad ones. Luke put it best when he was lamenting to Rey. Now that they're extinct, the Jedi are romanticized, deified, but if you strip away the myth and look at their deeds, the legacy of the Jedi is failure. Hypocrisy, hubris. At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out. It was a Jedi Master who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader. I became a legend. For many years, there was balance. But then I saw Ben. In my hubris, I thought I could train him. I could pass on my strengths. By the time I realized I was no match for the darkness rising in him, it was too late. For the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it. The last thing I saw were the eyes of a frightened boy whose master had failed him. By being open to the Force and feeling a normal human emotion, fear, Luke was susceptible to the dark side and acted on a moment of that fear. Kylo was already feeling this pull to the dark side, but his own fear of Luke and the light was the trigger that sent him headfirst into Snoke's arms. So, Luke fled. He realized that as long as the Jedi exist, the Sith would rise to meet them, and that scared him. In his mind, the only way for this to stop was for the way of the Jedi to end. When Rey comes to Luke on Ahch-To and asks him to come fight the First Order, he's already shut himself off to the Force. He's made his decision and has taken the ancient texts with him in order to stop anyone from seeing them and foolishly bringing the Jedi back. If that means running off this girl that shows up, so be it. But just because he shut himself off from the Force doesn't mean he no longer feels the call to act. He decides to teach Rey just the basics, and his fears are confirmed. As soon as Rey opens herself up to the Force, she immediately starts to feel the call of the darkness, and goes towards it. And yet, darkness is not all-encompassing. Even as Snoke said, darkness rises, and the light to meet it. Balance was achieved for a short time with Anakin, and then fear took hold of Luke and threw it out of balance. But even then, it could not stay unbalanced for long. As long as the Force existed, it would seek balance. The boy on the dark side still feels the call to the light, and the girl on the light feels the tantalizing call to the dark side. Luke's death was a final matter of him choosing not to answer the call to the dark side and kill Kylo, but rather to open himself back up to the Force and use it entirely for good. To force project in order to give the others time to get away. His story ends with him destroying the Jedi text, the rules that eventually led to so many Jedi falling to the dark side, and realizing that the Force would continue on without it.